Welcome to a new episode of the CIRAN podcast, reconciling two societal needs, resource extraction and nature conservation. We are Anita Stein and
Luís Rosendo.
And together with our invited experts, we are exploring how Europe balances resource extraction and nature conservation during the energy and environmental transitions. CIRAN is more than a podcast. It's a project funded by the European Union.
Today, our focus is on nature conservation and mining, two pillars for the humanity to thrive, and that are the key essence of the CIRAN project.
And to help us understand the challenges behind these topics, we have with us Leelo Kukk, zoologists, and more specifically a herpetologist, graduated from the University of Tartu in Estonia. Leelo started her career at the Estonian Ministry of the Environment, and over the past 30 years, Leelo held various positions and worked on a range of topics. First as a specialist responsible for aquaculture, water habitat restoration and fish stock management, and later she moved to nature conservation and became the deputy director of the State Nature Conservation Center, the organization responsible for managing all protected areas and protected species in Estonia. Since 2009, Leelo has been serving as Deputy Director of the Environmental Board, where her responsibilities include all wildlife-related matters, from nature conservation to forestry and nature education.
So thank you very much, Leelo, for joining us today. To start with, I wanted to ask you, considering that basically all human activities impact the environment, how do you perceive the existence of mining operations within environmentally protected areas?
Well, thank you for asking. Talking with you today, it's very nice, and thank you for this possibility. And I am quite suspicious, I must say. And if we looked at what is the coverage of protected areas in the whole world, it is only 16% of our land, and on European level, it's 26% of the land. And I know that Europe has decided that it should be 30% and also 10% very strictly protected areas. So this is not very high coverage of the land when we take into account that all the other lands are very intensively used already. And the situation is getting even worse when we look how our habitats and species are doing. Because on European level, 81% of our habitats are in poor condition, and only 15% are doing good, and 15% of species are doing good. So it's not very good situation what we have already with the nature in protected areas. And if we think that the mining is coming there, the mining has always the effect on the nature. That's why I think it's quite difficult to make them play on the same ground.
Following what you said, do you consider it possible for mining operations to protect biodiversity or natural habitats?
Yeah, I think that on certain areas and with certain techniques, it can be possible. But it requires very careful planning, then very strong environmental commitments, and also very good collaboration between mining companies, conservation groups, governments, and local communities. And I think this communication is one of the key words there. So everybody is accepting what's happening and knows how it's affecting and what can be done to compensate what's happening with the mining.
Thank you, Leelo. Well, I think there are going on quite a lot of innovations overall in the mining sector. Are you aware of any innovations in the field of environmental management that have the potential to disrupt the mining sector?
I think that I'm not a very good person to answer that because I'm not working with the mining sector. I'm more with nature conservation. But what I have always stressed is that I think before we are going to think about opening new mines, I think at first we have to overlook how much materials we are recycling or reusing. And again, if we look at the numbers given by Eurostat, they are not very high, because only 11% of our materials are used which are coming from recycled sources. And when we look at metal ores, this is 24%, and non-metallic minerals, only 13%. So I think there is a long way to go. Before we should open the minds, I think we should think more about reusage. And what I'm also thinking that this recycling, maybe it seems that it's very inexpensive. I have heard a lot that people say that this is very expensive to split all these minerals from each other. But I think if we would really take into account all these ecosystem services, what the nature protection areas give to us, and if we really put that into money, I think this is more expensive than recycling of minerals. So I think it's very important that before opening new mines, we have to raise the number and percentage of the recycle and reuse of minerals and metals.
That's a very good point, but does not recycling has also an impact on biodiversity and ecosystems?
Of course, I think all the things what we are doing in the world has some kind of impact, but it depends that, for example, if you are having already the controlled, how to say, systems, you are having already this metal into your hands. It's very much different if you go and open some mines, and if you, for example, affect very strongly water systems or this all the habitats which are on ground. So this is very difficult to put all these ecosystem services in numbers, but I think this is way more expensive in the longer run than doing this recycling in the closed systems where you have already everything in your hand.
And which role should regulatory agencies play to make sure that mining practices are becoming more sustainable over time?
There are several of them, and I think first very important thing is that we should have very strict environmental regulations. And all the companies who are working that, they should follow them. And they should follow also the national and also international environmental laws to prevent the habitat destruction. I think this is very important thing, that this should be in place. And then we should have comprehensive impact assessment. This is, I think, what should be done on very good level. It should take into account all the environmental and also social impact. And then when we are talking about protected areas, we should think about buffer zones. Maybe we can then prevent the damage what this mining can have, and use these sustainable mining techniques, which use less maybe water, doing recycling way the water, and there will be reduced land disturbance, and which helps to preserve the biodiversity. So there are, I think, those regulations or possibilities what can be used more, and again in the end, but it's not the last, what I would say is the communication, talking with the local peoples, with the government, and also environmental organizations to find the common ground. And one thing is also, I think that it's not a sustainable mining practice itself, but maybe to compensate the damage what will be done for the nature or environment, that somewhere this English word somewhere they should compensate the areas, maybe putting some extra effort to restoring some habitats somewhere else, not in the same place, but somewhere close or nearby.
Yes, that's a good point. And the question we have is that how do protected areas influence the mining projects?
Of course, I think when we're talking about the protected areas, there you have to be even more careful before you start doing the mining work, because they are already the hotspots of the wildlife. They have been chosen which are more rich in nature than other areas. So you have more responsibility when you are starting to do there something. So, for example, in my country, in Estonia, mining in protected areas right now is not allowed at all. And it's not the only country in the world where it's decided that mining and the nature conservation areas don't fit together. But I know that there are some countries where it's managed to put together. And we have also had discussions that maybe small scale minings, they can maybe also make some new habitats for some species, which is useful for them as well. So it depends very much what kind of how big pressure you're making with this with the mining. And I think, for example, if you are talking what kind of geology we have in different places, because somewhere, for example, if you have these limestone areas, the water systems are much more delicate than when you have some other geology. So you have always take into account where you are going to make this new mine. And yes, I think near the protected areas or on the protected areas, there are more legal restrictions. And as everywhere, you have to talk with the local people, local communities and environmental communities. So I think this is the difference when we talk about mines anywhere else.
Yeah, you touched already a bit upon this topic, but could you develop a bit further how, in your opinion, successful partnerships between nature conservation and mining could look like?
Yeah, it's sometimes it's quite difficult, and I actually don't know very many good examples from abroad. I'm not worked in with that very much, but I have some good examples from Estonia, from my own country. And for example, we are quite cold country. In winter times, there are big minuses, and some old mines, which are already a long time left there, some sandstone, and then also limestone mines. They are like caves, what we don't have naturally so much, and they are very good wintering places for the bats. And bats use them quite well. And there are huge amounts of them. So what was left after mining areas, the biodiversity has found a place to use it, and it's really useful for them. And for example, we have here some mining areas, and we have some species, one toad, a natterjack toad, and they like these open sandy areas, and it's good if we are, how to say, keep them opened. And the mining areas, we have had a good cooperation with them, and we have agreed that some parts of the area is left a little bit untouched, and they need also very shallow ponds, and this company has digged shallow ponds which are without fish, and so these species are doing there very well, because they are not doing, they are very strictly protected everywhere, they're not doing well, but in these mining areas, the miners leave them some places, and they are doing well there. So there are possibilities.
Yes, it's nice to know that there are some life after the mining. Thank you. So you mentioned costs earlier. Do you think the need for nature conservation can make mining projects financially unviable? How should we balance the investment needed to make a mining project viable with the need to protect ecosystems?
I think it's when we think about mining, then we are mining different minerals. Some of them are quite common, and some of them are very rare. And I think when we compare it with the nature, it's the same. Some species are doing quite well, and they are quite common, even if we protect them, some habitats as well. And at the same time, there are some habitats or species which are really, really rare and which are really uncommon. So if we start to talk and compare whether we would have the priority there for nature, or whether we have their priority for minerals, what we really need for, then we always have to put them on the same picture and compare how much we are losing and how much we are winning, and whether we can do it somewhere else. Maybe there are some species which are living only in this place, and we cannot ask them to move other places. And probably there are places where only this mineral, very important one, is found only there. I don't know how. I know that there are overlapping with protected areas with critical raw materials, but I don't know how critically endangered species are there. So I think we always have to compare the wins or losses when we compare these places. And of course, we have to figure out whether there is possibility to compensate it somewhere or mitigate the damage there. It's always should be taken into account. I don't know whether I answered correctly this question.
Well, a part of the question. The other question is, on your perspective, how this trade-off between environmental protection requirements and the need to go ahead with the mining project should be managed?
I think sometimes maybe the costs will be really so high that you cannot open the mine because you are damaging too much, and it's not possible to mitigate or compensate somewhere. It can be possible, I think. It depends what kind of values we are protecting in the protected areas. It depends on the geology, whether it's possible to have this, even the underground mine, and it doesn't affect a lot. But if you have, for example, bog areas on the ground and the water is going through, so your bogs will be lost. So there are so many different things what you have to take into account before you make the decision.
Getting back to another topic that you mentioned at the beginning, you were talking about the role of communication. And so I was wondering, could you explain a bit further your perspective on how it could be possible to achieve a good balance between interests that are often conflicting? Which role does communication play here? And what are good practices, in your opinion?
To be honest and open, and to keep everybody at the same information level. But I have to say that it doesn't always even help with that, because there can be still some things that people just don't think, or their beliefs, or they don't think that we have to. It doesn't matter how you mitigate or how you compensate or how much you communicate, because they think that it shouldn't be done and that's it. Sometimes you cannot discuss with that. So, but I think it's important that you have given your best. You have tried to keep everybody, let's say, in the circle, and tried to discuss together what can be the good outcomes. But I see what I see right now in our country, that even you are trying to do that, there are some people or groups who are just against, and even this good communication doesn't help always.
Well, in your experience, do most people oppose mining projects out of genuine concern for the environment, or are they more driven by fear of change?
I think the fear of change is one topic, but I think that especially when I look younger people, I think they see that we cannot live in this how to say endless economic growth anymore. there are too many people. We cannot afford all these living standards what everybody wants to have now in the world. Because when we look at this overview, how at what time already the world is using all the materials, it's coming, more and more towards to the beginning of the year. I think it's already somewhere in the first part of the year. So I think younger people already think that we have to step back. So it's not only fear of change. Maybe they are fearing of the change when we talk about the climate change, that we are using already all the resources, that maybe we shouldn't use everything so intensively anymore. We should somehow step back. So I think this is also what's now and more coming up.
Okay. As a specialist in conservation, what advice would you give, not just for the CIRAN project, but more broadly on how to approach mining in environmental sensitive areas?
Actually, I have already mentioned that it's very good when you asked that what is your advice to the mining sector, and what is my concern is that mining sector is looking maybe to only its own sector, this mining sector. Maybe we should have a larger picture, because what I mentioned that before opening or extracting anything new from the ground, we should look whether we can reuse or recycle something more before we start opening new mines. But this is not only the question of mining sector, but they, I think, also should think about that. It's not only mining. I know that we all need minerals. We have to find it somewhere. But should it be always the new mines? I think this is the question what we should ask from ourselves. It's very important. And if we really need that, then it's again, we should very carefully think what can we do differently, whether this exact spot in the protected area is the first choice, whether there are some other places where we can open the mine, not only in protected areas. And if it's only the protected area, then we should think about how we compensate all these damages what we are, because I think and not any mining doesn't have all the mines have some kind of not damage, but they are affecting somehow the systems, natural systems, and we should think about how to prevent that and how to compensate that. So step by step, at first recycling, then maybe outside of protected areas, and then when it's on protected areas, then all these restrictions and how we compensate that.
Thank you very much, Leelo.
Yes, thank you. Fantastic.
Thank you.
This episode was brought to you by CIRAN. CIRAN is an EU-funded project that is investigating how to balance resource extraction and nature conservation.